At this time, I'll call the August 31st, 2023 meeting to order for the Dixon County Commission. Would you please stand and join in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On our agenda today, we do have one item that we will be adding to the agenda, and that is to be considering a bid from Reese Construction on the 1900 bridge. And with that, I would move that we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
We have the motion and the second for approval of the amended agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The consent agenda includes the minutes of the August 24th meeting, also payroll of $357,374.74, an abatement of $3,146.42.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second it.
We have the motion and the second for approval of the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Commission comments, Ron.
No comments today.
Craig.
Yeah, last Monday night I attended the fire chiefs meeting at the courthouse. And yesterday I was in Topeka, KAC regular meeting, and then we had a KAC policy meeting that talked about legislative issues. That's all I have done.
Okay. And I don't have anything to add. And so we will go ahead and go on to our presentation of petitions, proclamations, public comments. We do not have any petitions or proclamations. This would be opportunity for public comment, but the public comments, this would be directed only if it has to do with something that is not on the agenda. And so we would hear that at this time. But once we get just a little further down in the agenda, we do have also opportunity for public comments regarding the budget and also the revenue neutral rate. So if you're here on something other than those two items that you would want to bring up, this would be opportunity to do so. And you just need to step to the podium and give your name and address and what your concern or question is. And this is just for things that are not on the agenda. So there still will be opportunity for public comment on budget items. Yes.
Don Neville, 308 Northwest 17th. The radio purchasing for the safety, is that now, or it's not on the?
Yes, you could bring that up now would be.
Okay, a couple questions. I'm told and found there's state money available to pay for these if it's asked for. I can't tell you what channel that's through or whatever, but, and rather than the sales tax. And guys, I'm telling you, we're like a car dealership, but we sell some big ticket items, and the sales tax is an immense amount that we all pay, all customers pay. And if that state money is available, I can't see any reason why that be applied for and received instead of raising 1/4 sales tax to buy these radios. The other thing is there are more than one company selling these radios, and if there's bids and who submitted the bid for these radios, if that's, I'd like to know.
Okay. Kind of the two parts on it. There possibly could be some state money available for that. And that's something that we're aware of and potentially could receive, but it's not a sure deal. And while I say that, I mean, we've been assured that very likely could happen, but until we actually receive the money, we don't have the money. And so the 1/4% that would go to the ballot to be considered for that could be used for that purposes, because the money we receive, we anticipate if we receive it, it would not be enough to cover the total project. So that would shore that up. Now, if that would happen, that we receive the money from the state, and we also had the 0.25% sales tax pass, that could be sunsetted as soon as that difference is made up. So, that would kind of be a best case scenario. So that's part of it. Now, as far as a bid, there has not been an actual bid. There's been estimates on what it would cost, but until we're actually ready to put it out for bid, and then there could be more than one agency or supplier. I don't know how many there are, but more than one could be.
Absolutely. And that's why we would send out an RFP and go out for bid. So, but the other thing I'd like to note is it's not just for a communication system. The sales tax question is for public safety projects. The communication system is part of that, along with the all hazardous response vehicles, which there are 2 in the county, one in Abilene and one in Harrington. So those trucks are due for replacement here in the next few years, and an estimated $600,000 for the truck a piece. That's a lot of money to come up with. And we do know that they respond. Well, last year was almost 300 calls that they responded to out in the county, on the interstate, on state highways, and inside the city limits. Total between the 2, yes.
Yeah, these trucks are like ambulances.
There are rescue trucks, so they have the jaws of life on them, the equipment's there.
Or if there's a chemical spill.
Chemical spill, exactly. Any hazardous response that could go on.
And of course, the purpose of the project too is to have good radio communications, because right now in visiting with a few people, sometimes there's areas that the local police department, it goes silent and they can't communicate or they can't hear. And the same with the sheriff's department and so on. And so sometimes there's a safety issue for a responding officer on how the communication's going. So this actually involves 12 fire departments within the county, our emergency medical services, as well as 4 law enforcement agencies throughout the county. So it's, and then of course we have Chancey Smith here with emergency management. But not only within the county, but then they could interact with the highway patrol, other counties, because, often, potentially things happen right on a county line. So it's pretty close between who's responding or both are responding.
I've read the articles and I've listened to her interview on the radio. So a little bit informed, but just had a few more questions about it. I think that's about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Because those are issues that need to be brought up and discussed. And one thing I am hopeful for is that we do receive that state money. And once we receive that, some of it's the timing type issue too, because if we didn't receive it and then couldn't put it on the ballot, then we've got a problem that we're faced with there because of the dollar amount. Okay, is there anyone else that has a comment or question on any item that is not on the agenda? So we're going to go ahead and move on. And the first item we have is the Dickson County Revenue Neutral Rate budget hearing. And once we have that hearing, that will be followed by our regular budget hearing. And so, Janelle, do you want to make a few comments on that before we go ahead and open the hearing?
Well, Marcus will have a short presentation as to the fiscal year 2024 budget, proposed budget. I will say that he's done an excellent job, along with our managers, going through line by line to look at the budgets. And I believe that we've got a strong proposal for you to consider. So I would turn it over to Marcus now to make his.
You want to do that before the revenue
Yes.
neutral hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Rob Child, Finance Director for Dickson County. And excellent. thank you guys for working with us through this process. It really has been a joy for me coming in new this year to the county. It was a little bit of a crash course on learning just how all the budgeting works with the county. It is different than the city. Luckily, a lot of that stuff does transfer over. But like Janelle said, working with all the department heads, you can tell that they're all people that take the tax dollars and the taxpayers to heart with everything that they do. I think today we're presenting an effective and efficient budget for you. And first, I wanted to mention off the bat that when we publish the budget, or with the revenue neutral rate and the timing, we have to have that information into the county clerk by July 20th. Since that time, we were able to review some of our projections, look a little closer, dig in a little deeper, and actually lower the mill levy. So it's actually what we're proposing today would be at 54.44 mills compared to the 55.380 mills that was published before. So this is actually really close to 1 mill decrease compared to what was published. It's actually 0.936 mills lower, about a $250,000 difference in the property taxes that we're looking to bring in. So I was really happy to say that the county would be able to lower the mill levy with what we're proposing to you today, if you so choose. So to get started, just the purpose of the county budget. The budget is a financial roadmap. It is a plan. None of it is 100% set in stone. You approve to allocate those dollars so that we have a plan to work with to make sure that the services are provided and can be funded for the upcoming year. For the fiscal year 2024, the total budget overall, all authorized or cash on hand, we're looking at $32,899,841, which actually comes in with a mill reduction of 0.523 mills. The Dickinson County budget consists of 22 budgeted funds with another 11 non-budgeted funds. The tax levied funds, so when we're talking about the property taxes, that's typically a lot of the funds that people call and want an explanation on. These are the funds that actually are funded and have a revenue source of property tax on their account. That's a general fund, road and bridge, health, noxious weed, the EMS bond and interest, and the courthouse renovation and jail project. So taking a look at the Dickinson County mill levy history over the last 10 years, you can see it's fluctuated somewhat. This is something just for me coming in. I was really impressed when I looked and saw that the county really since 2016 is up actually less than $1.5 million over that entire time. So over the last 9 years, county and the county commission, kudos to you, the department heads, everybody, really done a good job of holding the line and trying to keep that as flat as possible. You can see there was a jump in from 2015 to 2016, but since that time, really held strong and held the line on the mill levy. Now we can take a look at the property tax values and kind of see what this would do to someone's individual home. So when you're looking at the taxes, you get your tax sheet and you see how much money you've got to pay. The county is just a portion of that. There are several taxing entities depending on where you live in the county. But for the county's purposes here with what we're proposing, if you had a $100,000 house, you would be looking at, with the 54.44 mills as the tax levy rate, you'd be looking about $626.06 for your county taxes. On a $175,000 house, you'd be looking at $1,095.61. Or on a $250,000 house, you'd be looking at about $1,565.15. Just so you can kind of get an idea of how that 54.44 lowered the mill levy. It's a $0.5 mil on an individual home. It doesn't make a huge difference, but on that $100,000 house that we were talking about, it would lower your taxes by about $5 on the year. on a $150,000 house, lowers it by $8. $250,000 house is just a little over $11. So now taking a look at I think this to me provides a really good picture of where your tax dollars actually go. So on that sheet, you just kind of see the total, what you're paying. This is what you're paying for. So this is we're looking at a $175,000 house as a sample here. And so that mill levy with those 6 mill levy funds is kind of broken off to the side. It's a little easier for me to just walk up here and kind of point it out. But so here's your mill levy. This would be what you're paid per year. So when you're looking at $681.33, that's broken out for all of these departments here. So that's something in this year so that you have the sheriff protection. We have jail services, EMS, dispatch, county attorney. All of those are underneath that general fund. So when you look at that $681 that you pay on your $175,000 house, that's all the services that you're allotted for that. Also, the highway, road, and bridge. To maintain those highways, we all know that's not cheap. Bridges, I'm learning more and more what those cost as issues continue to come up, and paying about $304 of your taxes will go towards the road and bridge, $16.30 towards health, noxious weeds about $30.59, the bond and interest just $485, and then currently the courthouse renovation and jail project is $58.58. So that's kind of how that breaks down for you. You can see we did the monthly cost off to the side, just to kind of give you an idea if you were to break it down per month. Now we'll go into the actual Dickinson County revenues here. You can see property tax is a big revenue source for the county. That is how we are able to offer a lot of these services. So right now we're projecting $14,753,936 in property tax for 2024. Off to the side, the all other fees, that's the second largest there. That includes a pretty large number of fees. It also has some highway, some outside assistance on there. The highway sales tax is actually included in that all other funds as well, where we have the general fund sales tax broken out separately. And the general fund sales tax comes in at $1.5 million. So compared to property tax, everything else looks fairly minimal. And just one last note on revenue. That's part of the reason why we are continuing to look for additional revenue sources anytime we have the opportunity. There's not a lot of revenue that the county is able to bring in, but if there is any new opportunities or anything that we can continue, we'll always consider that as a staff and try to look and see weigh the pros and cons of what those new revenues could bring. Next, we'll look at the major expenditures for 2023 compared to 2024. Now, when you look at this, we're talking about budgeted dollars here. So a lot of this is budget authority. And so when you see a big jump, that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to spend that much more dollars, but like the highway sales tax, for instance, Martin has some large projects coming up in 2024. So we were able to defer some of that balance in 2023 to make sure that we're able to have those funds available in 2024. And as additional funds have been collected, we're planning by the end of 2024 to have a total of $4,449,764 after the revenue is collected. So that's not sitting in that fund right at this moment, but that's how many dollars we're projecting between the cash balance and the revenue coming in 2024 would be. General fund, same thing. The biggest difference on that is every year we do budget a cash balance reserve just for the protection of if any type of catastrophic event would happen, if we needed cash on hand in the case of some sort of an emergency and those types of effects, or if there was a year that some sort of a revenue source fell off, we would have funding to at least be able to maintain services for a certain number of months until things get back going and we get back on our feet. This is staffing and employees. With everything, personnel is always a huge part of your budget. I know we've all talked about this over the last couple of years. As inflation has increased, we've seen also pay across all sectors start to climb as well. Those things have kind of gone together. And so I wanted to break down so you can just kind of see how many employees we have. We have 143 employees total, and that's, you can see how they're broken out across all the departments, with obviously the sheriff and jail being the largest with 41 employees, and EMS following in second place at 21. So this kind of gives you an idea of where your dollars are spent by function. So those special funds, once again, that's actually falling into the highway funds, highway sales tax. A lot of that is going to be your highway funds. We have public safety coming in at 29%. That's going to include all your sheriff and jail, and also EMS. And then administration, 13%, public service, 10%. You're going to see your clerks, register of deeds. And then we've got taxation and election at 5% and appropriations at 2%. That's some of the agencies that request funding from the county that they offer. They're agencies that offer support to all county residents. Now I'm just going to kind of run through a few of our departments real quick, just to give you an idea of how these departments use your tax dollars every year to operate. Last year, the highway department did 205 miles of paved roads. They had 108 miles of gravel roads that they maintained. For asphalt, they were able to overlay 11 miles, chip seal 21 miles, mastic seal 11 miles, and did 92 miles of paint stripping. For bridge replacement, we talk about, how much it costs to replace bridges. Well, we have 300 bridges in the county, so obviously that can add up to quite a bit as we're trying to make sure that those are stay up to date and current and safe. We also have 1,300 plus structures that are under 20 feet. They also do some ditch cleaning as well. Next, we have noxious weed in your environmental services. They do a lot of the mowing along the county roads, sometimes with the support of our highway department as well. They last year were able to treat 20,670 acres of bindweed. They also sprayed for 12,398 acres of musk thistle. Then when we're looking at the transfer station, which is currently closed right now, but getting some brand new concrete, so they're going to be open to operate once that is settled in. But currently in a year, they've been doing over 10,000 plus tons of waste. 1,500 plus gallons of latex paint was recycled last year. Another 2,500 gallons of used oil came through there, and 20 plus tons of e-waste. The district court, they had 3,691 cases filed last year, and they received $26,947 in restitution for victims, and e-filed over 10,000 documents. The Sheriff's Department, they wrote 729 citations that were issued. 4,526 civil processes were served. There were 2,791 traffic stops over the year and 58 drug-related arrests. The jail processed 887 individuals, and they have been averaging about 40 people daily in the inmate population. Our EMS staff, they had responded to over 2,500 calls. They helped transport over 1,600 patients, and their average time for calls is just slightly over an hour. They're usually on scene on average about 21 minutes. The health department also for the county helps administer vaccines. They've also seen an increase in foot care as we've been offering that service to county residents as well. Our county clerk's office, we have over 13,500 registered voters in the county. Right now for 2024, Jeannie's going to be busy with 3 elections that include a presidential primary next year. They also help assist and prepare over 50 homestead tax returns. The treasurer's office, there's currently 91 taxing entities that receive funding through the county, and they processed over 31,000 motor vehicle transactions and 3,000 driver's license or ID renewals. Another service is planning and zoning. Tim issued 60 building permits last year. 17 of those were for new single-family homes, and there were 53 accessory structures. The appraiser's office annually per statute visits 1/7 or over of our over 14,000 parcels in the county. So they are out and about a lot, reviewing and appraising properties. We also have our IT and GIS department, which is becoming more and more important today as we've seen a lot of issues with security breaches in the public sector across the area. Luckily not with Dickinson County today, but that's something we're going to continue to watch and try to monitor and stay on top of. Emergency management is another service. Chancey, he offers significant number of trainings. In our upcoming training, we're going to have an opportunity to go through some active shooter training. We've done some disaster drill training in the past, and he has 110 CERT volunteers in Dickinson County. Also, your dispatch 911 emergency communications. There are 2 dispatchers on duty 24/7. They've handled 43,987 calls by dispatch, 324 texts, which hasn't quite gone on as fast as we thought with 911, but that is an opportunity for people that you can text to 911. And out of those 43,987 calls, 25,955 were for police, fire, or EMS. We did swear in a new county attorney in 2023, Brock Abbey. And there was 313 criminal cases filed last year, 1,760 traffic cases filed, 74 juvenile criminal cases, and 54 child in need of care cases. We also have our Register of Deeds office. They're responsible for recording all property transactions in the county, and last year filed 3,460 documents. And that was the main part of my presentation. Wanted to make sure that we gave plenty of time as you open the hearing for the public to speak. And do you have any questions?
Thank you. So we have a couple of things that we're going to do. And as far as the hearing is concerned, the first one we have is the Dickinson County RNR budget hearing. That's the revenue neutral rate. And so do you want to make a comment on that before I open the hearing as far as a description of what that involves and how that came about?
So the revenue neutral rate was enacted by the legislature in I believe we started it in 2012 if memory, or not 2020, 2022 if memory serves. And what it is the budgets are based on the assessed valuation from the current year as compared to the mill levy from the previous year. So the tax dollars from the previous year are used against the assessed valuation for the new year coming up. So it's in essence a tax lid to make sure that they want us to budget for the same amount of tax dollars coming in each year. So they enacted the R&R and they require us to hold a special hearing for that. They also require us to send out an additional notification for the taxpayers so they could come in and express their views.
By letter in the mail.
By letter in the mail, exactly. So.
Okay. So in accordance with that, at this time, go ahead and open the hearing for the revenue neutral rate. And this would be opportunity for anyone to comment on that. And even though, as Marcus mentioned, the what was published as the mill levy, we're actually reducing that slightly to 54.44 is what's going to be considered. But in doing that, it still exceeds the revenue neutral rate from the previous year. And so we need to have opportunity for public comment as part of the consideration on that. And this just has to do with the revenue neutral rate. The next hearing will have to do with the budget itself. But if you do want to speak in regards to that, this would be your opportunity to do so. And once again, just step to the podium and give your name, your address, and your comment. And this is a part of a public recorded hearing, and also in the minutes that Jeannie would be taking. Yes.
Don Nebelsick from 308 Northwest 17th here in Abilene. And we also have a business on the south end of town, Don's Tire and Supply. And, you know, we can talk about mill levies all we want, lowering, and it makes you look good in public image, but it all goes, it's just a vehicle to arrive at the amount of tax dollars that you are collecting. And you know, we all have to live within cost of living increases as people living in the county. And us in our business, until the pandemic hit, we're very conscious of those type of increases through our labor rates, through our employee wages, raises, and so on and so forth. Now, when the pandemic hit, there was an adjustment that we had no choice to make to retain employees, number one. Guys, we keep getting hit on our commercial properties, or it kind of all ties together with this. 10%, 12%, houses 11% a year. And that's hard to swallow. And there needs to be an end to those big jumps. I can understand the cost of living adjustment cases, but we need to go on and on. And another thing is I'd like to know total dollars, total budget, which Marcus kind of covered that, but it's in different segments. So it's kind of hard to catch it all as he went through it. Where you go from year to year. Where are you at from year over year over year? How much have you increased year over year over year? I know prices have gone up. They've gone up for all of us. But we find ways to get through those. And it's kind of a hard pill to swallow when you say, well, yeah, your $100,000 house is only going to go up $58. But how much did that $100,000 house raise in appraisal this year? 10%, 12%, 7.5%, 11%. So add that in. And that's kind of a misleading thing to the general public when you're sitting here and saying, well, you're only going to go up $58. That's not true, because your appraisals went up 10, 11, 12%. So how much more does that add in? I know you guys don't have an easy spot, and Marcus doesn't have an easy spot, and everybody. And, you know, and Janelle's comments about the market or the department heads and so on and so forth, and I respect that a lot. But it's just hard when we get hit with these assessed valuations constantly over and over and over again. And other than that, I don't know if I've got anything else to add. But any questions from you folks, I'd like to try and answer or discuss or whatever. If you've had any for us.
Thank you. Any comment or question? Yes, sir.
I'm Dan Townsend, and I live at 1969 Hawk Road. It's 2 miles south of town, right in front of Browns Park. To Don's point, I'm going to go kind of weave into that, but I was born and raised here, but for about 40 years. And I came back here when I retired, and I built a house out by Browns Park. And I built that house 9 years ago. And every year I've been seeing a tax increase that's more than inflation on my house. This one particularly really got my attention because the value of my house went up 11%. Okay, and I think that's across everybody, isn't it? Or, so everybody in the whole county got 11% increase. Am I right with that, or is it vary by
Average.
So I'm average.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay, on average, everybody in Dixon County got 11% in the proposal, right? Well, I'm at 11%. And I understand home value and mill rate tie together to figure out your taxes, okay? But theory, if your home value goes up, your mill rate should maybe go down. Am I right with that in theory? That's not what I'm seeing here. And I looked at the proposal and all that, and if I'm reading this right, is the county, the revenue neutral is 53.473. The proposed rate is 55.38, but I understand that may be reduced slightly, right?
Mhm.
Now, that was 24. I'm talking, this is 23, okay? So it sounds like in 24, it might come down a little bit.
Mhm.
But I'm looking at what I got to pay in December and May, okay? And I'm concerned. So the proposed rate on my house in particular is 3.57 on the mill rate, if I'm reading this correctly. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm getting 11% increase on the value of my house. And I'm getting a mill rate of 3.57 increase. So the house value is going up and the mill rate's going up, right?
If the 11%, if it increased that, yes, the value would go up.
That's why I'm here.
Right.
So, I'm looking at last year. The mill rate was 54.967. Based on the rate, 55.38 is what the proposed rate, it might come to basically about 2%. It's kind of what am I right? About 2% increase on the mill rate based on just what I've been hearing today?
Are you looking at just the county portion on it?
Yes, I'm looking at only the county because this is a county meeting, correct?
Correct, right.
Okay. I'm just here to express my concern, okay? I moved back here from a major market. This is my hometown. I like living in a small town. Came back here. And I'll tell you, I'm paying more in property value on my house here than I did in a major market. A little concerned. And I lived in a market where there was heavy snow, a lot of that kind of stuff that was a lot of additional expense in the wintertime. And I'm still paying more taxes here. And the other thing is every year I get this tax deal. I want to build a shop at my place. And I get this. This is not an incentive to spend money in Dickinson County. I mean, this is a de-incentive. Because if I put up a shop, it'd be a hobby shop, but I'm going to face the same deal on that as I would this. So I'm just telling you that, from an economic standpoint, what you're doing here is hurting the growth of the county as far as contractors and that kind of stuff, because I'm probably not going to do it now, or I'll just wait until maybe things level out a little bit. And, 11%, and I looked on the internet this morning, in 2019 and 2020, property values in Dickinson County went up 1.48%. I'm reading it on the internet, believe it or not, but I couldn't get any current more than that because it lagged. But 1.48, and I'm getting 11% pop. Inflation, from what I can find, is about 6.8 to 8.2. That's last year. This year it's down to about 3.5. It's back. Inflation's come down. So, and actually it said from July of 21 to July of 22, we've had a 3.5% decrease in inflation in this county. From, again, it's whose numbers are right.
Yeah.
So,
Did you get an increase the previous year?
yes,
Just,
I've been there 9 years and I've never had anything that's been flat.
okay.
Okay. It's been a steady, if it was 3 to 4%, I understand inflation. Okay. I work for a major big company. If it's running consistent with inflation, I wouldn't be standing here. But when you got inflation sitting there at 3, 4% now, and we're going up at double digit numbers, something's out of tilt. And, again, it's property value and mill rate. And those two, in my particular case, are working not in my favor. They're both going up. So, any questions from you? I mean,
Well, I'd like to say something here a little bit. I kind of see where you're coming from. I've got a young daughter who graduated from college just a few years ago and went to buy a new home. Bought a 5-year-old home, relatively good sized home, 5-bedroom, 4-bath. Wanted to expand her family. And I looked at her taxes at adjoining county, and I thought they were pretty high.
you talking here?
No, adjoining county.
Okay.
In Kansas, though.
Yeah, right here, not far away. And I was concerned that she'd be able to meet her obligations and stuff because they're young and they're trying to start out. Well, recently she's gotten married and sold her home. And I tell you this, but that home doubled. That money on that home that she paid for, she doubled her money, and I couldn't believe it until she showed me a check. So in all this time that she lived there, she made a lot of money on that house. So it was valued more than that particular county was doing. I was ready to go hang somebody. But then I looked to see what the value of that home was after she sold it. I thought, my goodness, what's happening with our economy? So what I'm saying to you is, I believe if you sell your home, you're going to make it. She doubled the value of her home, doubled it in a short time. That's remarkable. And so what I'm saying is your home's worth a lot more than.
Can you guarantee the bottom of it? Because it can go the other way too.
Well, it can, but I'm just giving you an example.
I've lived on both sides of the market. Okay.
But another instance is I've lived all over the world myself.
Excuse me.
I've lived all over the world myself. And believe me, in central Kansas here, the homes, even some of the highest values, are still better than on the East Coast or the West Coast.
No, I'm not, that's not what I'm.
I'm getting.
I get exactly what you're saying there. That's why I'm not on the West Coast or the East Coast. I'm in Abilene, Kansas.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We're glad to have you here.
Yes. Yeah.
But
And we hear what you're saying.
well, you hearing and doing is two different things. Okay. I mean, and I just want you to take it under advisement or something. And look, when you get ready to do the budget, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people. Okay. And, especially people that have moved back here that have bigger homes. I mean, my home is not a small home, and I understand that. But again, the mill rate and the percent, it double deals is what is hurting me. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other than Don or Dan, is there anyone else here that would like to make a comment? Yes.
My name's Greg Cummins. I live at 2408 Sage Road. I got kind of it's a question more than anything. I need to go back to last year. I did put a new shop on my property. I live out in the county. And they assessed it and all that. And I had a detached garage. Well, they appraised my house with having two houses on the property. And it's a detached garage with a rec room in it. So I appealed it and it all went through, and they lowered my value of the property because it's a detached garage. And then when I got the adjustment, it was almost the same value. So I called the county clerk, wanted to know what was going on. And she said, well, we used a different formula that more reflected what your property was worth. I guess and I asked her, I said, well, did all my neighbors get the same formula, or is it just me? And she wouldn't answer me on that one. And due to her commitments, I couldn't appeal to Topeka, couldn't make it up there. But my question is there more than one formula for the appraisal of property, or does everybody in the county get the same formula? My property, once they reappraised and took the house off, and they had that house substantially, went down like, I don't know, $10,000. And so now, like I'm saying, now that with this 11%, my value just went out the roof this year.
The state gives a formula and method, and it goes to all of the appraisal offices, and then they also come in and evaluate to make sure that they're doing it consistently. So I'm not sure how, I don't have an answer for you. Other part of the question, we'd almost have to talk to Lisa,
Right.
unless, I don't know if you have anything, Janelle.
There's probably a couple different ways that the property could be evaluated depending on the use. So that is a possibility, but Lisa Berg is our county appraiser, and she would be the best one to speak with and answer that question as to what,
I don't understand why there would be more than one formula, especially if it's out in the county. I think everybody ought to be appraised on the same formula.
it depends. It's set by the state, and it depends on the use of the property. So there is going to be.
Formulas published anywhere so that we can see what they're using to.
The property valuation division at the state would have some of those answers. And it's going to be listed on their website on the.
Formula listed there. I've tried.
Okay. Again, I would ask that you contact Lisa. I'll take down your name and number, and I'll have her give you a call.
Okay, appreciate it.
I don't know that it applies to you, but I knew of a situation in another county where they lived in a smaller dwelling and it was part of a barn, and then they built a house and moved out. And in that particular county, they wouldn't change it from residential unless they went in there and removed cabinets, even though there wasn't anything in it. They had to remove some carpet. So they considered it, in that Kansas county, they considered it as a living quarters, even though no one was living there, just because it potentially was set up for that. So that goes back to like the use that she mentioned, that that would be one of the differences on formulas if the usage was something a little bit different, but probably Lisa Berg would be the one.
It just appeared to be that they were upset because they lost revenue because they had to devalue the property, and they got it back using a different formula.
Well, I mean, they're collecting the information, but I wouldn't think that would be part of that logic, but we need to check it out.
We need to talk to Lisa about that, because there are state guidelines that we have to follow. And then they also come in and review the work that the appraiser's office has done to make sure that they're.
And you signed in, so we have your property location and so on. So.
And then if you put your.
Greg,
Yeah. Okay. And you can pay under protest.
Right, which you had filed.
Okay, that's fine.
Lisa's not going to be back in the office until next week. I'll have her give you a call.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there others that would like to make a comment?
One more question.
Oh, sure.
Don Neville-Sick again. Can you give me the total assessed valuation from last year to this year?
Last year, the assessed valuation was 263,019,664. And the assessed valuation in 2024, or for this 2024 budget, is 270,998,038.
And there is different percentages charged on different types of properties against your,
Correct. That's a good point to make.
that's might be what he was getting at.
And sometimes people do not realize that commercial properties actually pay a higher rate.
Yes, they do.
And so it goes back, you know, and I'm aware of that and I knew you would be too, but from that 11.5% on residential to commercial, it's nearly double. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I like your time, Mr. Pierce.
Oh, thank you.
Scott Prince, 1425 3200 Avenue, Abilene. I agree with everything these gentlemen said. I do believe you're speaking for a lot of people in the county that couldn't be here this morning. I bought my home in 2002. And the property tax at that time was about $900. My most recent bill is $2,300. So if you do the simple math, and that's about 155% increase. I'm on a fixed income. I can tell you, even though I get cost of living increases, it nowhere near matches 155% increase. To your point, sir, about selling the home, I plan on living on the home. I don't plan on selling it. And so I have to meet expenses in the time that I do live in the home. And I think that's just unsustainable. I agree. I think it's just, there hasn't been a year where the property taxes ever went down. You know, it's only went one direction. A recent edition of the Reflector Chronicle talks about how income tax credits and college loan forgivenesses were issued in order to attract particularly young people to live in Dickinson County, in rural counties in Kansas in general, of which Dickinson County is one of them. And it's not working really. I mean, they had a modest retention, but people are still leaving, and they're leaving rural areas and rural communities. And one of the reasons that, as this gentleman expressed, I'm originally from the East Coast, but I did move here in 2002 and bought a home in Dickinson County, is affordability. The reason I want to live here is I don't want to pay East Coast and West Coast property taxes. That's why I live in Kansas. And that's why for me to go to an airport or to a major store, it's a considerable drive. I don't have all the conveniences that people have in urban centers. But I live out here for a reason. I don't want big government. I don't want people telling me how I can and can't use my property. I want to be able to afford where I live and live a modest but comfortable lifestyle out here in the Midwest. And that's the reason I live here. And, you know, when you're on a fixed income and you're getting hit with 11% increases here and there, and I know it doesn't sound like much, but you know, I echo this gentleman's sentiments 100%. I will not build a fixed structure on my property because I don't want to pay the property taxes. That is the number one deterrent for me putting up any kind of new structure on my property. So it's actually impinging on my enjoyment, my pursuit of happiness, if you will, because of the tax burdens. I drive a 96 Ford F-250. My other vehicle is a 99 Oldsmobile Silhouette. I don't drive these big fancy trucks I see the county cruising around in. I drive old vehicles because I don't want to pay increased property tax. The number one reason I won't go to home and buy a new vehicle is because I don't want to pay the increased property tax. So the tax burden does impact consumer behavior. It impacts our quality of life. It impacts the choices that we make. And I really don't care what the East or West Coast is doing, frankly. I'm concerned about what Dickinson County is doing here in Kansas because it impacts my life. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to come and express those sentiments. Wish you gentlemen a good day.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from anyone here or anyone that is online? So if there's no other comments, we can close the public hearing. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing. That had to do with the revenue neutral rate. And it is something, if it exceeds the revenue neutral rate, or to be considered to exceed that, we need to go ahead and vote on that resolution.
Correct. And it would be a roll call vote.
Okay.
And this is a
So
housekeeping
there needs to be
matter.
a motion then to adopt resolution number 083123 in regards to the budget,
The revenue neutral rate here.
revenue neutral rate.
And this is a matter that the legislature has passed as part of the budget process.
So is there a motion in regards to that?
So moved.
I'll second it.
We have the motion and the second that gives us the authority to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Is there any further discussion? I have a few things pertaining to it, but I think I'll save those for when we're considering the budget. So we have the motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Or hold on a second.
Your roll call.
Yeah, typically that's what it is. We all either say aye or nay. On this one, as Janelle mentioned, it has to be by roll call for each person. So I'll start with you, Ron. If your vote is a yes, no, or no vote.
Yes.
And I would vote yes. Craig?
Yes.
So by that, it passes 3-0 that we have the authority to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Now, the next item we have to consider, and that's the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 budget. And so is there some discussion or question on that? One of the things I was going to mention before that vote occurs, I appreciate the department heads, Janelle and Marcus. We did publish a rate that was higher, and then we did reduce that rate. The other thing I guess I should have covered this prior, because one of the items is the legislature by statute. There's a fund called LAVTR, and that is money that is sent to Topeka and then by statute is to be returned not only to the counties, but municipalities such as the cities. And on that particular item, it amounts to, for the county, $337,000 and 404. And anyway, that amount was not returned to the county and the state kept it. And if that amount would have been returned to the county, it actually would have reduced our mill levy by over 1 mil, which would have put us underneath the revenue neutral rate. I think the other issue that always comes up as far as the budget, and I'll use road and bridge as the example. We have so many miles that we're going to pave in a year, and gravel and stripe and so on. So if the rock increases, the asphalt increases, the concrete increases, do you stay within the budget from last year, or do you increase it, or do you just go ahead and have fewer miles? So there's some things that, we could do some sort of reduction, but we're actually cutting back on services, or we're cutting back, say, on the miles that we'd service. There's other things such as when someone calls 911, regardless of what your budget is, there's 24/7 response, and the same with law enforcement. So there's some things that there really isn't any area, to consider as far as cutting. But anyway, I think that's important as far as consideration.
And I'd like to say something also. We have control over the mill levy, correct? Of raising it and lowering it.
Mhm.
But we don't have control over the assessed value of properties in that state. Doesn't the state control that?
The state gives us the guidelines as to how we assess the property. So that's what, that's part of the responsibility of the appraisers is to look at that. Market is the other piece of this. So market drives the appraisal of the property.
Okay.
Okay, we have the budget before us. This is less, as far as the mills are concerned, less than what was published. Is there a motion to adopt a budget amount, or another budget amount for that matter?
I move budget is presented.
I'll second it.
We have the motion and the second to approve the budget as presented. Any other discussion? And for clarification, that'd be 54.44 mills,
Which is what Marcus presented. Yep.
which is resolution 083123, in accordance with it also. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. This can be by
Yes.
voice vote. Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to reports of county officers. Janelle.
Well, just a couple of things. Mastic Steel has started in the county, and we are going to do 11 miles. We're estimating that it'll take us about 10 days to complete. They're sealing a portion of 500 Avenue and also a portion of Oat Road. And that's going to be about $25,000 a mile, roughly. Reese Construction is working on the bridge at 1145 First Road. If you recall, that's the shared bridge between Dickinson County and Clay County, and they're driving the H-pile there. We're continuing to haul rock to Vane Road while we get it, which is a good thing. And then they are replacing a tube in the 1300 block of 3200 Avenue and doing some Durapatching on Rain Road there north of Chapman for maintenance on the road there. The other thing I wanted to mention is the concrete has been poured at the transfer station in the waste building, which is great. We're still estimating it's going to take about 2 weeks of cure time. So we are not accepting trash from the haulers or from the public, but we are still open to accept leaves and limbs, e-waste and whatnot out there. So currently we do have 2 positions open in the highway department. We have a position open in the county attorney's office, but I'm happy to say that I believe we have a couple of applications in there, which is great. And just a reminder that the courthouse will be closed Monday, September 4th in observance of Labor Day. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Doug.
We finished out the tax sale deeds and sent out, so that matter is concluded. We'll move forward now with the next one, and it'll take a while to put that together, but as soon as we have the information from the abstracts, then we'll move on forward. But we have.
Okay, thank you. On notices and communications, we continue to receive some emails and comments in regards to the wind turbines. We have some that are raising a few issues. Just wanting to be sure that there's an awareness as far as some of the disadvantages. And then we also have a couple of emails that are speaking in favor. And so that's something that's lots of discussion in the county and probably will continue to have discussion. And at this time, we still have not received any formal request that would start the procedure. And so all likelihood indications that probably is going to come sometime in 2024, but we're just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Still doing our due diligence and gathering information.
Okay, the next item we have, and this is a resolution pertaining to the regulations of keeping dogs and domestic animals or dogs that are found or reported on the loose out in the county. And not necessarily, I say dogs, but actually it has to do with animals in general. So there's a wide description. And so Janelle, if you'd want to go ahead and speak to that resolution that we have in regards to that.
So this came about twofold. Beginning of the year, we had an attorney contact us with regard to a cattle at large that was involved in an accident, and the resolution that we had in place at that time included criminal charges. Well, state of Kansas has a statute that addresses cattle at large. And so the recommendation from that attorney and from the county attorney is that our resolution, we couldn't have that in there. So their recommendation is we exclude that language since state statute already covers that. So this resolution that you have before you cleans that up. It still includes if there is a vicious animal or rabies, a report of a bite case, it still addresses those issues. So we would just ask that you approve this resolution to take out the criminal piece of it, and it would become a civil matter.
Okay. And that is resolution 083123-A. Is there a motion for adoption of that resolution?
So moved.
Second it.
We have the motion and the second to adopt resolution 083123-A. That is a resolution pertaining to the regulating the keeping of dogs, domestic animals, providing, taking them, impoundment. And so that's any other comment or question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next item we do not have any unfinished business, but we also now have to consider an agreement with Cobb Valley Engineering Services. Janelle?
Commissioners, this is a housekeeping matter. With the retirement of John Goff, a year and a half ago, we were using on a case-by-case basis Chad McCullough for engineering services, and we would like to formalize that agreement now. And Chad is working with Cobb Valley Engineering. He's moved to that service or that organization, and we wanted to formalize an agreement for our services with him. The agreement calls for an authorization. So anytime that Martin calls him or I call him on work, then we'll have a form that we'll have him fill out requesting the scope of services on that. And then we have an hourly rate schedule along with that. So we just ask that you approve the agreement and designate Chad McCullough as our project manager or county engineer on county projects.
I'll make that motion to accept Chad.
I'll second it. So this would allow us this motion and second to go into agreement with Cobb Valley Engineering for their services, and Chad is their contact person we're using.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We already had the resolution regulating the keeping of the dogs and domestic animals, but we also have a memorandum of understanding, an MOU with Abilene Animal Hospital. So Janelle, would you cover that?
The MOU came about primarily of the Sheriff's Department. In their budget, we had been budgeting that any dogs at large calls that the county received, the Sheriff's Department would go and pick up the dog and take them to the animal hospital. And then there's fees associated, and those fees would be an impoundment fee for 3 days, vaccinations, cough, rabies, distemper, testing, and then if euthanasia or disposal is required, then we would have that. The sheriff has requested that due to time constraints and opening new cases each and every time a dog at large is out there, that the Sheriff's Department no longer be responsible for that. So I worked with Dr. Rankin to come up with a memorandum of understanding and then place that responsibility still with the county, but not coming out of the sheriff's budget. It would come out of another line item within the budget. So, and it would be a rate of $195 per impoundment with a 1% fee increase per quarter for that, for any dogs that are turned into the Abilene Animal Hospital. Now, I will say that the animal hospital will do their due diligence to see if they can't find the owner of the animal. Some of the concerns are this is pretty costly to the county taxpayers. Last year, it was $5,700 that came out of the sheriff's budget for this. We're already at $4,400 for the year. Owners take responsibility for their dogs, in my opinion. They take them up there, or they're turned in, and then when the owner comes in and claims them, they say they can't pay the bill, and then that comes back to the county to take care of. So, and that is a concern.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to enter this memorandum of understanding with Abilene Animal Hospital? I'll second it. We have the motion and the second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item we have is an item that was added to the agenda, and this has to do with the bridge on 1900 Avenue. So this is something that's going to involve an insurance claim to a business that to take care of the repair of the bridge. Janelle, do you want to go ahead and give us kind of the details?
So earlier this month, we had the bridge at 1060 1900 Avenue. It's a truss bridge that was damaged with an implement that was large to pass through. And the property or the business owner came forward to let us know. We spoke with our county engineer, Chad McCullough, and had him take a look at it. And he provided an estimate as to what the repair would be. The bridge at the time that it was damaged was a 6-ton bridge, but with the damage to it, it reduced it to a 3-ton bridge. Based on his recommendations, it can be repaired. So we went out for bid. We received one bid from Reese Construction to make those repairs. And that would be to repair the lateral truss members on the bridge. And that quote came in from Reese Construction at $18,265. So this is a quote that I will be working with the business owner and their insurance company to as the insurance claim. But if we had the repairs done, then we would be able to reopen the bridge back at a 6-ton limit. I will tell you also that as part of our discussion with the Road and Bridge Supervisor and Martin and with Chad, that this is a bridge that we are going to move up on our list for replacement. The bridge is, well, it needs to be replaced. It's a quite old bridge. It's a truss bridge. We would put it in the cost share program for replacement, and it's $2 million bridge to replace that because there'd be some right-of-way acquisition, some straightening up of some property lines, run in line with property lines. So that's a cost that we would have to take into consideration, and being able to apply for funding for that, and an 80-20 match would be great, but that's still several years down the road. So it would probably make the most sense for us to go ahead and have the bridge repaired and open it back up to the 6-ton limit for safe passage.
Okay. And it could be that it's going to take a while, even if we decide to pursue replacements.
Correct.
If the funding that doesn't come through, might happen in 2-3 years, might happen in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Okay, is there a motion to go ahead and have the repair made by Reese Construction?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And if there are other expenses could be involved to turn over to the insurance company as far as
Correct.
Works that our
the
department.
damage.
Mhm.
Any other business to come before the commission? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have the motion and the second to adjourn. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned.